This is an anatomy practice quiz of the human heart model with just over 30 questions. There are 12 slides each containing 2 to 3 questions that will ask you to name a structure, layer, or space, so pay attention to the wording. The complete vocabulary list is in the description, as are the chapters. I will display a slide for about 10 seconds and then give the answer with a brief commentary, so you can pause the video if you need to. Let's get started. So here we're looking at the heart from a superior top-down view. It's also orientated a bit anteriorly. We have our 3 great vessels on the very top of the heart. The one right here in the middle is the largest artery in the body. That is our aorta. Sitting right next to it, orientated a bit more anteriorly, we have the pulmonary trunk. Note that it's technically an artery, but it's colored in blue because it contains deoxygenated blood, and it's leaving the heart, so it's traveling away from the heart, making it an artery. Then we have our 2 auricles. Those are appendages of the atria. This one over here is the right auricle. We can tell it's the right side because we have the apex over here. It's pointed more towards the left side. So pay attention to the verbiage. Name the space. Note that there are 4 chambers inside of the heart. So we have a space right here. We have a superior and inferior vena cava that empty into our very first chamber. This is our right atrium. It's opposite to the apex. Down here we have a bit of a bulge. That right there is a papillary muscle. Whenever you see a bulge inside of one of these ventricles that's attached to one of the heartstrings, the chorda tendineae, which is attached to a valve, that bump right there is going to be a papillary muscle. It might be hard to see, but it's at the very tip of the pointer. Lastly, over here, we have this structure. It's a rather thick one that separates the 2 ventricles on both sides. We've actually cut through it. That's why we see it also over here as well as over here. That's our interventricular septum. It separates the right from the left ventricles. So now we're looking at the back of the heart, the posterior aspect, but also a bit more inferiorly on the bottom. This structure right here in blue is our coronary sinus. And what it does is it takes deoxygenated blood that was supplying the heart muscle and transfers it back into the right atrium along with the superior and inferior vena cava. So they all empty into the right atrium there. Next, here we have a coronary vein in blue. Note that on the right, we also have a coronary artery in red. Please note, though, that these coronary arteries have a lot of different branches and a lot of different names to them. For a model like this that's fairly limiting in its size, we're just going to call them coronary veins in blue and coronary arteries in red for simplicity. But just do note that there are a lot of different branches from those coronary arteries. Here's another anterior or frontal view. So we have the front of the heart removed. This first question, name the space. Right here, this is the right ventricle. Note we've already established what the right atrium is. When blood goes through this next AV valve, it enters the ventricle. Because we're on the opposite side of the apex, we're on the right side. Therefore, we have the right ventricle. Up here, name that space again. Note that the walls are thinner, so this is technically an atrium. This one is the left atrium. It's opposite to the right atrium. It's on the same side as the apex. We have the left atrium. This one, name the layer. Be very careful with the verbiage. This one is the endocardium. It's the innermost layer, so any part of the heart in any of these atria or ventricles, any part that if we were to point to and say name that layer, that's the endocardium. So be careful with the verbiage. Here we have another frontal or anterior view, and we've taken the front portion of the heart and we've reflected it away to the right, exposing this cord over here. This is our chordae tendineae. It's one of the heartstrings. The heartstrings are chordae tendineae. They attach the valve to these papillary muscles, those little bumps. Over here we have our pectinate muscles. Note that these are these comb-like ridges and they are located in both of the atria. Conversely, inferiorly to that, we have these same or similar ridges in the ventricles. These are our trabeculae carnae. Very similar, just look at location. Pectinate muscles in the atria, trabeculae carnae, those are in the ventricles. This over here is a more lateral or side view. This structure right here is the right AV valve. Now, how do we know that? Over here we have a superior inferior vena cava that empties into the right atrium, so we know we're on the right side. The right atrium sends blood into the right ventricle, therefore we know this is the right AV valve. It's also known as the tricuspid valve because it has 3 of these leaflets, although we can only really see 1 from this view. This structure right here is the fossa ovalis. It's this shallow-like depression that's actually sealed, but in a developing fetus, it's actually a pathway that blood can bypass the lungs, go from the right to the left atria, because the lungs aren't being effectively utilized in a fetus. This one, name the structure, and the hint is a groove. It's this shallow depression right here. This is known as the anterior interventricular or anterior longitudinal sulcus. Anterior because we're on the front of the heart, interventricular because it's between both of the ventricles, also known as longitudinal because it goes straight down, and sulcus because it's a depression. It does contain these important vessels, but the groove itself is the anterior interventricular, anterior longitudinal sulcus. The key word here is region for both of these, so name the region. This one on the very bottom is the apex of the heart. It's on the muscular side of the heart and it points inferiorly into the left. Opposite to that, on the top here, we have the base of the heart, which is orientated roughly with the atria as well as the great vessels of the heart. Both of these, the apex and the base, are really useful for helping us orientate us to the different regions of the heart. So we've already established this is the pulmonary trunk, and this is the right ventricle. So there's a valve between those two of some sort. This is the pulmonary valve, also known as the pulmonary semilunar valve. It's a check valve that prevents blood from going backwards between the right ventricle and the pulmonary trunk. Next, name the specific layer. Again, verbiage is important. This is our muscle layer, the myocardium. Note that this structure technically also would be the interventricular septum, but we're asking for layer, so be careful with the verbiage. Over here we have another valve of some sort. This one is the left AV valve. Left because we're on the opposite side. We've mainly identified things on the right, so this is the left side, also orientated with the apex of the heart. Note that the AV valve is also called the bicuspid valve because we have 1 and 2 leaflets to it, and it's also known as the mitral valve. Here's another side or lateral view of the heart. Up here we have a blue vessel of some sort, and below it we can also see a little bit of another one. These 2 vessels empty into the right atrium. Therefore, this is the superior vena cava. Next, again, pay attention to the specific verbiage. Name the layer at the tip of this pointer right here. This is the epicardium. We could point to any point of the outer surface of the heart and say name the layer, and it would be the epicardium. So here we have an oblique view and it's kind of awkward, but what we can tell is we have a chamber here and another chamber down here. The upper one has a thinner walled, so it's an atria. The bottom one's thicker, so it's a ventricle. Our first question is name this structure, and it's a valve of some sort, and that valve has blood pass through it and enters the aorta. Therefore, we have the aortic semilunar valve, or just the aortic valve. Next question is name this space, and if you know your flow of blood through the heart, you know that this space, the left ventricle, precedes the aortic semilunar valve and aorta. If you didn't know that, you can look at some other hints, whereas the apex of the heart points slightly towards the left, but also in the left atrium, we can see we have multiple of these openings from the pulmonary veins, although they are colored in red. Now here we're looking at an inferior, also the posterior view of this. This one right here, name the structure, small little bit on blue that's been cut off. This is our inferior vena cava. Opposite to that, we have the superior vena cava emptying into the right atrium. Next, name this structure, and our hints a groove. That groove right here is our posterior interventricular, also known as longitudinal sulcus. Posterior, we're on the back surface of the heart. Interventricular, between the two ventricles. Longitudinal, goes up and down. Sulcus, or that's our groove. Note that it does contain some important blood vessels, but the entire structure itself is known as posterior interventricular longitudinal sulcus. Here we're looking at the posterior aspect, or the back of the heart. The first two up here, name these structures. These are our pulmonary arteries. Note that on the front it comes from the pulmonary trunk and it splits into these two pulmonary arteries. Also note that they are colored in blue because they are containing deoxygenated blood, although they are technically considered arteries because they are leaving the heart. They're traveling away from the heart. So these vessels transmit blood to the lungs. The blood becomes oxygenated and it returns via these structures here on both sides, the pulmonary veins. Note that they're colored red to denounce that they are containing oxygenated blood, but they are technically veins because they are traveling towards the heart. Pulmonary arteries and pulmonary veins are very commonly mixed up on tests for students, so be careful. So that will conclude this video on the quiz on the heart. If you feel like you need more practice, in the video description below is a link to the demonstration video of this particular model.